to settle that whining. Give him a tap here. There we go. Alrighty, so go ahead and show me what you remember of Bailey. Good. Now, are you using a verbal cue at all?
No, we were using, maybe go?
Was that your verbal cue?
I feel like it was go.
Okay. Did you say anything at the beginning here?
No.
Okay. So she's defaulting into the go command, but you want to make sure you do cue that word. Do you cue it when you're at home?
Sean does a lot. I suck with it.
Okay, so we want to get consistent with that?
Yeah.
Because that creates some confusion there. Because technically, once we layer in that cue, that's like the on switch of, hey, now we're walking, and we're walking in this fashion, right? Otherwise, if you just start walking, most dogs, if they have a cue, technically can do whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like going to work and putting in your punch card or whatever. Now you're working, now you have to do what you're supposed to do, but until you're punched in, you don't have to technically. Once you punch out, you're free to do as you please. So if your word is go, that's fine, but making sure that you're consistent with that, okay? And then I saw you make a left turn.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember how to do those left turns?
You use your left foot, don't the right?
The right leg, okay?
We were talking about it because we watched the video. There was someone was doing something with her in one of the videos.
Sure.
And I was like, isn't it the left leg? He's like, yeah. So I don't know, maybe we just got confused with it.
If they're on the right side, it's the left leg. If they're on the left side, it's the right leg.
Okay.
So you're using the leg opposite to the dog.
Okay.
Okay? So, do you remember what you do before you speed up, before you stop and slow down? I mean, stop and turn?
No, maybe.
Slow down.
Oh, yeah.
I just said it.
I was like, wait.
Yes, so you drive clearly, right?
Yeah.
What do you do before you stop?
Slow down.
What do you do before you turn?
Slow down.
Right? So it's the same thing with these guys, okay? So if you've been having some issues with the walking and just foraging and stuff, a lot of times it's that factor. It's just the people aren't slowing down, okay? Especially my fast walkers. That I'll even tell them slow down when you walk with your dog, because it already puts them in that mindset of being self-aware that they slow down. Otherwise, they walk so fast that they'll just always forget and just stop, and the dog will go, okay? So we're gonna change a couple of things, okay, or update. So you're gonna cue that word go. Okay. Your left leg was correct, you said go, and then you would start moving, and you would say go every time you go from stationary to motion.
Okay.
Okay, so every time you come up from a stop, yes, Bailey should automatically sit. You wait a moment, give that go command, then move forward with your left leg. Now you're moving, and I'm gonna have you do that left turn, and you're gonna do a sharp 90-degree cut with that right leg instead. Okay? It should feel a lot easier.
Okay.
Okay? Try it.
Start walking.
Go, and then left leg.
Go.
Good. Yep.
Yeah.
See how that's a lot easier?
Yeah.
Go ahead and slow down to your stop. Okay, so it's very common, because when you move with your left leg, you have to shove the dog out the way, or you end up tripping over them. So when you lead with that right, it allows them to stop or move their head so they prevent colliding with you. Excuse me, then left and then right if you're to make a complete U-turn. So if you're walking with them, you would slow down, and then it would be right, left, right. So then if you're within the space of a sidewalk, you should be within that space. If you end up off the sidewalk, if you're on the sidewalk and all of a sudden in the grass, you took too many steps, or you're doing a round turn.
Okay.
Is what typically what happens. Okay. The left leg would be for the pivots. Okay. Left, right, left.
When you're just turning the dog around.
Where you're doing a 180 to the right. Exactly. So it would be stand to the left, back on the right, forward.
And then they walk around and turn around.
Correct. Okay, so try that. Did you close the door to the room, Corey? To Bob and Gary, shut it, please. Left, right, left, like that. See how that's easy?
That's what I did, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you got the turns confused. Try another left, right, left here. And you can even try it from here. So you'll say go, stick out your left leg, go back on your right leg, and just turn right away.
Go.
Left, right, left, like that. Right, left. There you go. And then try a left turn, crossing with your right. Keep going, yep.
Do what?
Do a left turn, crossing with your right leg. There you go, left, and then right again. There you go, you got it, good. So you see how there's no like bumping into them or whatever? Mm-hmm. It's because you're cueing everything now with your body language. Okay, so the heel command is you teaching them to follow your lead, but then you have to know how to use your legs or your movements to let them know what you're doing. Okay, because if you just all of a sudden stop, you're gonna get this behavior. It's like if you're driving, you just hit the brakes. You're gonna towards the head and crash. Okay? So when you're walking with these guys, if it ever feels like a struggle, it's either you're not slowing down or you're not high enough on the remote. Those are the two most common things that I get. The next one would be like people pulling back, so they're resorting more to the pulling. They're resorting more to the physical pulling than they are to the remote itself. Okay, and I always go to the remote. It should never feel like an argument. Okay, so if you ever feel like, man, today was a bad day, something's off. Okay, your turns and your movements. If it feels awkward, I guess the best way to put it is when I watch people do it. And if you watch the videos, you'll hear me say like, "Did that feel awkward?" And they'll say, "Yes." And I'm like, "What happened? I didn't slow down, or I just turned, and I didn't get any cues, things like that."
Yeah.
So this is just like driving with your pups. So turning with that on that, maybe those left turns, but crossing with that right leg, super important. And then when we make those 180 pivots, pivoting off that left leg, and you can see how Bailey right away can move with you. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is all natural stuff. It's not anything I teach the dogs, it's already intuitive to them because the masters of being body language. So even if I have a new dog I've been trained before and I'm already doing these movements, they're already following me because they get it. It's kind of like dancing. Okay? Questions about that?
The only question I have is when I'm turning right, like when she's not on my. So like if I how if I'm turning left, I'm using my right leg to kind of turn it. If I'm going to the right.
Okay, soft right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you would still leave to the left, but it would be like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're crossing over, kind of like you were doing this, but instead of going to the left, you're going to the right. Now this is the hardest turn for dogs. And this is actually a term that they use in off-leash training, because dogs, if we're in the periphery, as soon as you go like this, you're out of it. So they can't see you. Okay?
Yeah.
So to prove my off-leash obedience, I'll purposely just turn out of nowhere, and the dog just keeps going because they can't see me. So I can correct them to go like, hey, I did something, exactly. So it's an unfair move for them in that sense, but that's how I choose to off-leash shield, so dogs are really perceptive of what I'm doing. So for the actual normal walk, it's the same process. You would slow down and then give off the left leg. And it's not most likely not going to be the most immediate turn, but they should catch it within like a half second or so. Okay? So we can try those. It's going to be the same thing as your crossover. When we call it crossover, you're crossing over Bailey or Rupert, right? And then the away turn would be with the left leg like that. Okay? Whenever you're ready.
So do a.
You're going to do the away turns. Yeah.
Go. So then just like.
Yep. Right. There you go. Yep. There you go. Try one more. Excellent. Like that. And slow to stop. Good. So the reason why she's able to be right on your body is because, one, they've been working on this for a week. Two, you're going at a slower pace. Right? And you're excited to see. So when you're out in the real world, that's why that slow down is so important, because they're going to go get distracted or daydream or whatever. So make sure that, so if you slow down and Bailey keeps going, what does that tell us?
I didn't go fast or slow enough. She wasn't paying attention.
Because you did your job.
By slowing down.
Exactly. Okay, so her job right now is to be mindful of Mom. Your job is to make sure she's being mindful of you, and to communicate what you're doing with those movements, right? So what I mean by making sure she's doing what she's supposed to, pay attention, is if you're walking and you slow down, you've done your part. So if you slow down your car and somebody still crashes into you, slow down. Make the same thing here. You slow down, she keeps going. Now have to turn to correct that, right? So the difference between the pivots like this, where we would communicate what we're doing, and the pivots of just turning and going, is when they're paying attention, you're doing this stuff, right? So if she slows down, you can see her curving around, everything's good. But if she's not, I don't worry about the movements anymore, because she's already paying attention. I just turn back, take her back behind, and you can go back. Okay? Is that clear for a few things?
Yeah.
All right. Questions about that? All right. So now it's the two dogs together. Goes back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if I'm not there yet.
Oh, I mean.
Like, I get it. That sucks.
What? What?
Now she wants to eat dogs?
Huh?
So now she wants to eat dogs?
She wasn't. I know they got it on camera. They're at corner.
Okay.
And she was actually by the camera as they were working with them one at a time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Very good. And then she was like growling or something. I don't think it
Yeah.
was full blown like runs and barking. From him, we've I think there's only been like a handful of moments, but they said it was very easily corrected.
Okay.
How's Sean doing?
He's good. He finished up. He's doing like CDL school. He wants to get out of IT. So let's drive the truck.
He does do like the lawn tracks and stuff?
No, I think he's just trying to do like public works. And for public works, you have to have your CDL, so.
Sure. I know an uncle of mine was a truck driver, but he did like the lawn.
Yeah, he talked about it. Yeah.
You want to reinforce there. Yep. And then what you do here is like pull back to your left. Yep. 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 A little bit more leash pressure. Yep. 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 Yep.
So stubborn.
I know. Okay. So we don't need perfect here. I don't need perfect. So that stubbornness, as we saw it here.
Yeah.
It's okay. The stubbornness is this. The anxiety. That's what the stubbornness comes from. Okay. Emotionally, her brain is telling her you can't do this. Make sense?
Yeah.
But through the remote, you're going, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about remote that, in my opinion, is the only thing that it's the only tool that can do that. So if a dog shuts down during training, most trainers stop and go, oh, like, you know, a little bit of dog
You're done.
stuff. No, push them through it. Because one, dogs will learn to use that more. So next thing you know, they keep shutting down every time they want to do stuff. Two, if it's coming from a behavioral place, like anxiety, fear, nervousness, or whatever, if you don't override that, the dog never gets over that emotional response. Three, that's what those like will use. Because if I'm outside and they're off leash, and I've never walked them through resistance, and they decide to run away, and I'm like, I need to be able to come back, and they decide that today, you've never worked on that before, the dog's going to run off. Okay? So here, there's two options of how to handle that. What number are you at?
35.
35. So you're at 35, you're tapping, and your short release, which is good, because that gives you more immediate leverage. You're tapping. And I said compensate by giving more physical. And eventually she popped forward and she did the loop with it, right? I don't care about perfect, I just care that she was cute. The other thing you could have done is you lightly pull and then you're tapping and you're gradually just bumping a number, right? So you see how lightly I'm pulling on Rupert here? Just keep playing with that number until she goes, okay, this is too much. And she goes with less physical work.
But more of the
More of this. Because it makes her break out of that mindset and go, I have to do this. Okay? There's no right or wrong. It's kind of like what you feel is going to work for the moment. My personal preference is always jump to the remote and make her break that resistance, because that's what's ideally going to make her less stubborn as you repeat it more. She's thinking, I can try to resist, but this is just going to go to 95.
Yeah.
Right? And the next thing you know, you don't have to go to 95, you go to 75, and then it's 55, it's 35. You know, it gradually becomes lower because you keep overriding the brain and it's learning that it's not an option. Okay? Questions about that? All right, so let's add in Rupert here. Was he on the inside or her on the outside?
He's on the inside.
He's on the inside, okay. So what we'll do here is I'll take her real quick so you can get Rupert in. There you go. Okay.
There was something so like they could both easily move.
Just show me what you do with that, okay? You can always tweak it. Okay.
Should I pull her back or just start walking?
Go ahead and just do a reset here.
Like pull her back?
No, you can move forward.
Move forward?
Yeah, because when you add in a second dog, things
Go.
get trickier. Okay. I see. And when's the last time you've walked them together?
Oh, a long time.
A long time ago.
And usually it's, if we do together, it's Sean's holding one and I'm holding one.
Right, okay. But you want to be able to walk the both of them together.
1 point.
Sure.
If it's like far out, it's fine.
It's not far out.
Like
It just comes down to,
it's just because it's easier for me not having to wait for Sean to walk both of them. Because like he won't be ready and then I'll sit around. And then at that point I should have just walked one and then walked the other one.
sure. Think of it this way. You can have what you want. Okay? You can have it today. You can have it a year ago.
Yeah.
It just requires.
Yeah.
So when you go up with the two of them, don't feel like you have to go with the two of them and do 4 miles. Do what you can. It's going to be harder to work with 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So like compensate for that, right? Because people get too stuck on trying because they walk, well individually, and getting that level together for a long walk, right? So instead I focus on getting that better positioning, correcting things so they're not forging, but make it a shorter walk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You got it.
I don't have to do my full 3-mile walk when I do it.
Yeah, because you have to build a skill set. Not just for yourself, of like, promote how do you correct your dog, the ones and stuff, but the skill set of on their part, like how do I walk with our dog, okay? We walk like up to 6 to 8 dogs.
Yeah.
That's a skill set, okay? If it was something that was easy to do, everybody would be doing it, right? Even walking 2 dogs at a time is a skill set. So here, my whole theory on this stuff with dog training, and it applies to you, is if you can make one thing harder, make something else easier, right? So you're making it harder by adding a second dog. So you're going to make it easier by going a full 3 to 4 mile walk. Just leave it, maybe you do, a block or like a square around the neighborhood. You know what I mean? You do that for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then you're good. And you're trying that. Eventually you're like, man, I'm getting better at this. Then that 15-minute walk becomes a 20-minute walk, a 30-minute walk, an hour walk. Okay? So I'll go ahead and take them here. I'm going to show you how I do it, okay? And we want Rupert on the inside.
Yeah. Just because I'm thinking if a dog walks by.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess Bailey's the one that needs to.
Yeah, she's just super easy.
Or Sean says when I take Rupert for the walk, Bailey will sit by the door and just be anxious the entire time I'm gone.
Sure. So this anxiety here just happened
When I came.
Yeah. He actually, the first day was very anxious, but he chilled out relatively quickly. It was her that the entire time she'd been here, been anxious, we've had to replace her pads because it would become so saliva. So yeah, she's a very anxious dog, and I'll talk about how you can more about that. Okay. So what I would do here is, since I want more control over Rupert, I give less slack here. I'm trying to see how I do myself. So I do the thumb. This is my personal preference. Yes, here we go. Cool. And what I do for the taps is I alternate them. Okay? So what's happening was, you're going back to old habits of using your arm. Okay? Hey, Corey? Yeah. Would you do camera work for me, please? So here, what happened when I moved?
They went with you, or?
They went towards you?
Oh, you tapped them?
Yeah. So when I started moving, they started lunging towards you. So I went tap, tap, Rupert, tap, tap, Bailey, tap, tap, Rupert, tap, tap, Bailey. So I just went like this. Because you can't do both, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I alternated between the two, but I still had the same concept doing that immediate turn to the right, to that 180. So when we're walking, now that I've corrected them, it's the same thing that we would do with one dog, but now we're doing it with two dogs. Okay, so that was a left turn. And I led that left turn with which leg?
Left turn, right leg.
Correct, right? So if I slow down, right leg, left leg, right leg. Like that. Okay? So now we have that communication down. So, right leg, left leg, right leg. I'm okay with her. There we go. Kind of stuttering a little bit. Now if I do a pivot, it should be the same. Yeah, for Rupert, it was odd for him because he's in the middle of me and Bailey. Slow down. Right, left. Okay, so it's the same motions. The only thing that you're struggling with, or would probably struggle with, is the tap, tap, to speed up Bailey, is the, it's everybody's habit to always pull back when they see a dog forge. And that pullback there we go, is what's going to cause more pulling. Okay? As soon as you go into this mode, now you're creating this. And you're also creating more reactivity should they go into a reactive state. Okay? So immediately as I started moving towards you, they forged, and I just made that 180 turn like we normally would. Tap, 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 tap. Between the two dogs, okay? And I have at 35. So if Rupert's generally lower and hers is generally higher because of that anxiety, because you have to override the anxiety, I would just opt for the higher number. If anything, it's just going to keep Rupert in check. So if his number is like 15 and he's getting nicked at 35, I would think he's not going to want to blow up because he's already in his head because of the 35. He's like already like kind of self-conscious of his behavior. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So it's all the same stuff. Heel. Left, I'm sorry, not heel, go, left leg. Tap, 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 tap. You see how I keep myself relaxed? I didn't go into pulling them. So you have a year and a half's worth of work with this. The behaviors are conditioned. Okay, they have a very, very good concept of what the exercise is. It's just human habit of doing the pullback as opposed to using the remote. Okay? So if I walk towards you, let's see what happens. Right? Good. So arms relaxed. Tap, 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 tap. You see how my arms stay down? So you've done good work. Good. It's simply being self-aware of this arm, because that's what gets everybody. Okay? Correct? And what I do here is this is a double lock system. Okay? So I'll put it. Okay? Handles like this. This locks into your thumb. And then when you wrap it around your finger, you had it pretty close. This, even if they both lunge, should not go out of your hand. This acts as a lock. Okay? When we hold it like this, or people do this, you know, you're gonna break fingers. It happens. So whenever we call this a trainer hold, because the dog can't pull the leash through your thumb, and then we put in the secondary lock, which is imitating this. And when you do it like this, also locks your leash. Yeah. Okay. So you have a double lock system there. So it's just a matter of finding the length that's going to work. And I had Rupert a little bit shorter, and then Bailey's was a little bit more slack because she's on the outside. There you go. So everything stays the same, just relax it out. There you go. Now turn, tap, 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 tap. Right, just all the same to the two of them. That was good. So hug towards the right here.
So when she starts going forward, so she started like going forward and like
Angling.
veering.
Yes, yes. What you can do there
Tap
is,
and pivot.
what I would do instead is actually do crossover turn. Where you're turning, yes.
Okay.
When you're turning into her, okay? And when you do so, come in with a lot of power, because then your leg is the correction, and because the remote means come tighter.
Okay.
So then what happens is if you do the pivoting crossover, I mean, turn around, which is incorrect, it might reinforce that wanting to cross over you. Now she's anticipating you're going to turn it this way, but when we turn inwards towards them, and you use your leg, and I like to make contact because that's what teaches the dog called crack. There's such a thing as too close, right? So they want to be here, but not like this, because this is going to happen. It's going to be boom, and then knock them out the way. Okay? So you saw that starting to happen. So the next time you see it, I want you to just think instead to just immediately turn into it.
And then would you tap too, or
No,
just?
because your movement is the correction.
Okay.
So if you make contact, right, you pump her on the head with your knee, that's actually the correction.
That's the correction.
Because remote here means come tighter.
Okay.
And she's going too tight. So then you have to counter, you have to balance it out by turning inwards and giving her that leg bump.
Okay.
Okay? Oh, you're deaf.
Oh.
Right?
Slow down.
You got to keep moving. Now keep moving, keep moving. There you go. Yep. And relax your arm, keep moving. There you go. Hold down. There you go. So when you get this jumble up, right? I know it's hard, keep your movement. Stopping actually makes it harder. Because it allows Rupert or Bailey or whatever to get more so like,
To get where he wants.
yeah, and if you keep moving, he's trying to like fix what the collar's telling him to do, but then also trying to like, you know, fumble around and stuff.
Yeah.
So as you keep your movement, everybody's habit is to stop or pull back, is it makes it even worse. Okay? Go for it. You have things remote?
It's over there.
They need to smush it.
Yes.
So
Okay.
then-
So keep forward. Yep. And relax that arm. You're good. Good. Keep relaxed. Good. And when you make that left turn, I'm gonna have you make that. Keep your movement. Keep your movement. When you make that left turn, a 90-degree cut with that right leg. Yeah. There you go. Good one. That was a good one. That was a good one. Right. So you led more with the left in her, right? You want to lead with that right. There you go. Relax your arm. There you go.
Where's my Rupert go?
So keep moving forward. Yep. Good. I want to try to do those turns. There you go. And slow or stop when you're ready. Good. And here, I'm not going to care about the sit back, because they went back on the foot, right? So, because you're working with 2 dogs now, again, making one thing harder makes something easier, right? I don't care about perfect positioning and stuff. I do care that they put their butt down. I do care that they're in the area of the left side, not like 3 feet away. This is really good. If they land a foot or so back, it's okay. You can just take a step back, whatever. I care about function. I care about the behavior the most. So if you're walking with the both of them, and yeah, this isn't like perfect, that's what people are thinking. I go, well, what's the behavior like? I'm like, oh, good. I'm like, any reactivity? No. Okay. Don't make life harder than it needs to be. What I teach is what I know people need in terms of to get the change in the dog with the behavior, the control. And then I go, let everything else go. Don't worry about the pretty looking movies and stuff, because that takes a long time to practice, and you have your job, you have your social life and all that stuff. You're not going to be committing yourself to learning a whole new skill that you're only going to use for a period of time. Okay? Does this all make sense? Yeah. Do you want to add in a distraction like a dog and all that stuff?
Sure.
You want to do that? Yeah. Okay. So I have Bane here. He's another board and train. He's actually deaf. And he's here working on dog aggression as well.
So if he lays down, I should pull him back up, right?
Yeah, I pull him up the cat. So what I would do here, we'll have to work on this. Is when you find yourself coming into a setting, there's going to be possible dog reactivity. Okay. So I gotta see Rupert side-eye.
Yeah. But he's learned to like when we walk too, he like ignores it. I remember the last time we saw you like to good sign like this for him to know like he shouldn't even be looking.
Yes.
Because he's
Yes. So when we deal with aggression or aggressive type responses, we always want to see avoidance behavior. Okay, that means the dog goes, hey, I don't like the fact that there's a dog walking right there, but I'm not going to start fucking about it. Instead, I'm going to pretend that it's not happening. Okay? Like Rupert. Good. So how has the reactivity been?
he hasn't been. I mean, I've had a couple incidents, not nearly as bad as it used to.
Okay.
Like he's still sometimes he'll react, and then now he'll do the can't even think of words. Like he'll jump and like go to his leash.
Oh, redirect.
There we go. Yeah, he'll still like redirect sometimes, but it's not as bad as like he used to like jolt forward.
Right.
And a lot of times he ignores it. If he doesn't, and I get him, it only takes maybe like 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Okay.
To get him to like come back down.
What's your number at that time?
For him, I think lately the highest he's gotten is like maybe 55.
Okay.
Like I've never needed to get him back to that 100 that he used that before he used to be at.
Okay. Was it a lot higher before?
Yeah, it was like, I mean, he ended up getting up to 100 when we first started.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
No, yeah, you're good. He was at like 100.
Okay. So you can make reactivity even better. Okay. And one thing that we stress now is finding a working number. And I can send you a video on this as well so you have a visual. He's actually been, I think even on the 15 to 20, like one tap within a second, he's just, when he had the moments, which is good. Okay. Now, don't feel bad, because it's not so much a skill on our part as it is you give him something to protect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You empower him in the sense that you're his family, you give him something to protect. We're nobody really to him. We're just some place he got dropped off at, and we discipline him. And he's like, oh, you guys do this too, and there's no emotional attachment. We don't come across as buddies, we come across as authority figures, and we correct things. So it's going to be a lot easier, because he's like, well, I'm not going to screw up here.
Yeah.
You know, like I already know what this place is about. But at home, it's a bit different. That's why I always tell people, you can't be a buddy and an authority figure at the same time. The buddy stuff comes along. But it's always important to be an authority first. I'd rather have a dog that's not attached to me, because then I don't have to worry about separation anxiety anxiety. I don't have to worry about resource guarding me as the owner. I don't have to worry about reactivity issues and trying to address it because we never had that kind of relationship before. The dog was just like, you've always been the parent figure. Okay? So here for you, what I would do is find the number. I tried, if I know I go to 55 to stop reactivity when it happens, and then his lowest number is 15, I try playing with a higher number in the middle. So earlier I mentioned about 35, like being at Bailey's number,
Yeah.
and he would already be in his head that you most likely, you'd have to be less likely to see reactivity. That's actually the process. Okay, so that would actually work out because her number is 35, 40-ish, and that's where his middle ground would be. Okay, so anything obedience-wise that he would make a mistake on, we would correct that 35 to 40 or whatever, and we see how does that affect his reactivity. Okay, because the one thing about walking the two together is if he's redirecting and biting up the leash, you may redirect it to go towards Bailey. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, so I would suggest bringing in that muzzle when you're going to do the two-dog walk, right, Bailey? I'd suggest incorporating it for the two-dog walk because once you redirects her, now it's a totally different problem. It's even harder to stop that because he's already in the immediate space. Okay?
Okay.
But yeah, for everything, 35, 40, whatever, and you may get a yip or two. Okay? So then, theoretically speaking, we would want to go down lower. But the way I look at it is, let's say you're doing 35 correct, level 35 corrections, and he's yipping, but you're finding yourself more and more using that less. Make sense?
Yeah.
Because he's like, crap, I don't like 35. So it's deterring him even more. So yes, the yips are happening, but they're becoming more infrequent because you have a breaking point on him. Okay? But if it's always 15 to 55 when he becomes reactive, that 10-second gap that it takes you from 15 to 55 can be worthwhile for him to do the reactivity. Like how dogs, people think like, if I'm correcting dogs and it's painful, why do they keep going when it's a dog? Dogs bite each other, and their threshold for discomfort is very high, right? And he's adrenalized, and it's like being in a fight, and you get punched, you don't feel anything, and then after the fight, you're like, oh crap, like you feel everything, the bruises and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's the same process. When a dog goes into reactivity mode, it's the same concept. Same thing for a dog that's very anxious, like Bailey. She was in the kennel, and she kept like trying to push out, and I think it went up to like 100 before she finally went, ah! And then finally like sat down, and laid down, right? But it took up to 100 to break through all that anxiety because she was so stressed out. This is like the first day she got dropped off.
Yeah.
Normal stuff for us. So I would really play with that higher number. And if you want to experiment with him solo first, see how it works, get used to it. And then when you're going to incorporate the two or incorporate Bailey, then go back to your muzzle with Rupert, because then there's even more to protect. Because now it's you and Rupert, right? So there's going to be shifts. It's all normal stuff. But I feel like if you're at the right number and it's just going to put down the power and remembering to keep that arm relaxed, you should have no problem walking these two together. I see that you've done your homework.
Yeah.
Okay? It's just a matter of pushing to the next level, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you go and just walk with these guys. I'm going to take Bane here, and I'm going to be walking around, and we're going to see how these guys do. Yeah. Okay, so left turn. I'm going to have you keep going straight here, okay? Go a little bit to the left. There you go. And then if you can, go ahead and stop right there in the middle there, okay? That's good. There you go. Okay. Okay. So here, do you remember how to tell if we might see any tension or reactivity here?
On them?
Yeah.
Like his ears will pop up.
Okay.
He'll start, like he'll look, obviously, up.
Okay.
I think it's always the ears.
Ears. So there's another one. The ears, the eyes, the hackles, the tail, the body, the chest, all those are visual cues. Okay. But the biggest one in this kind of setting here is the mouth. Okay, see how they're both panting?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna keep an eye on Rupert here and already be ready. If we get reactivity, do you remember which way you want to pull?
Back.
Not bad. Back makes more reactivity.
Towards me.
Not towards you. That's why we're here today.
Shit. Sorry.
That's okay. This is a G channel.
I know, that sounds like I'm
I
sorry.
swear on the side, don't worry about it.
Really? Up.
Up. Always up. Okay? It's okay. Now we're filming this. Now you can show Sean like, hey.
Oh my God.
Now we can't forget.
It's gonna be like, this is why you shouldn't walk.
No. Everybody does it. Everybody does it. Don't beat yourself up. Everybody does it. I get clients, I'll have just told them, make sure you slow down before you stop, right? And they start training, I literally just told them. And then you stop, and the dog goes. And I'm like, what did you forget to do? They're like, I don't know, the dog was paying attention. And I'm like, no, you didn't slow down. And I just said it 2 minutes ago. It happens to everybody.
Sorry, I listened.
It happens to everybody, okay? So here, whenever they become reactive, always straight up, okay? Up de-escalates, back, up and back, escalate, okay? So that can also be the potential of why the reactivity can take longer to shut down. It's because you're saying keep going with the hand, but the remote is saying stop it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if you have this saying stop it and this saying stop it, it should be a faster response, okay? So the next thing that we want to keep an eye out for is if both of these guys are panting like this, when they go under stress, they'll close their mouth. Okay? And
Okay. They'll stop.
yes, it'll get quiet. So like Rupert has licked his lips up 3 times right now. He knows that Vane's here, and he's one of the dogs we use him to socialize with. And so he's already got some like tension in his head, just momentary. Like kind of probably anticipating like he'll probably do something right now.
Yeah.
He's actually in his head. Okay, so I'm gonna have you look at Bailey and Rupert and look at the mouths. Okay, see how I just closed it? Then you opened it. All right, so keep looking at them. Right there.
So tap.
You're okay.
Okay.
But I'm just pointing out
How he
closed his mouth, he licked his lips, and then he also dipped his head. Okay, so there was a very big reaction. But these guys had like a year and a half of work and stuff, right, and what we did. But let's say I have a dog that's just started training. It would be the panting. And then once the stressor came in, then they're just staring, right? But since he's already got a feel for, collar, corrections and all that stuff, he kind of went into like, am I going to be corrected for this? And right there we're showing them like, no, it's not about Bane's presence that leads you to being corrected. It's about you,
what you do.
exactly, in response. So if you become aggressive or reactive, yes, there's going to be a consequence for that behavior. But if you don't do anything, nothing happens. Okay? So I'm going to move around, just watch these guys. Okay, good. Let's see what happens when we go around. See how brief you got quiet here? You see that?
Yeah.
So right there, do you know why you got quiet?
Because she noticed him behind.
Huh? Why would that be more worrisome?
Because that's I'm saying like she can't, like if something was to happen, she can protect herself.
We're
Maybe.
vulnerable, right? We're vulnerable from where we can't see. So as I started to move around, all of a sudden you noticed her energy got quieter too. And Rupert was kind of going like this with his head so he could get around your leg to see what was going on, right? So now this is another thing that you can watch for, okay? So if someone's walking with their dog and you see Rupert, I don't want you to think closed mouth means correct, okay? Closed mouth means Rupert's feeling uncomfortable about what's going to happen or what is happening, okay? If he closes his mouth and then goes back to panting, it's okay. He let it go. If he goes from closed mouth to like moving forward, ears forward, he escalates. But the closed mouth is the 1 to the 2 to the 3 that leads to the 10. Okay? So every dog is different. I refer to it as a undefensive behavior because closed mouth can become relaxation. Like, yeah, that stressed me out, but it's not a big deal anymore. Or it can be closed mouth leads to reactivity. We have to figure out which one is Rupert going to be. Okay? Then once you correct it, let's say he is the closed mouth to reactivity mode, you have to do it. After you correct them so many times, and then you have to start kind of giving a little window of, are you gonna tense up, but then let it go and relax? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you just keep an eye on it. But I think having this at 35 preemptively, or at a higher number, promoting them for the tiniest things at a higher number, will help resolve a lot of that reactivity, that's like that residual reactivity, and also that pulling up as opposed to pulling back. It's a very big deal when it comes to reactivity stuff. Okay? And then worst case scenario, you have an off-leash dog or meet here, and like you got Rupert, you're trying to prevent him from biting that dog, straight up and off the ground to where you're lifting the front paw legs up, because then you can correct it. Okay? Now, if it's an off-leash aggressive dog, I personally don't leash go and let my dog defend themselves and help them.
Yeah.
Because that's nothing on his part, right? But you want to be mindful of where your hands are, because you don't want them to get hit. Yeah. And I have off-leash dog attack videos that I'm putting up that educate people like this, how you stop a fight without reducing the risk of injury. Yeah. So those are things you can watch as well. Okay. Questions so far? Okay. I'm gonna do another little walk around here. I'm gonna watch these guys. So see how the second time was different than the first time?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's happened to her, like she's.
That didn't happen on the first one. So it's the anticipation or the thought of something bad's going to happen. Then we work through it. If there was a moment, we would correct it. And then we would keep working and repeating. That's why repetition is so important. Okay? So like if Rupert, if a dog's being reactive towards Rupert, it's a great place to work because that's like one of the hardest things. But a lot of times that person wants to leave with their dog because they're embarrassed. So that if you don't stop Rupert by the time that dog leaves, he thinks there's reactivity when the dog leaves. Right? So then that doesn't help you. So it's all about repetition. So if I had a dog here that was reactive and we come from out and Rupert was being reactive, we can keep the context going. So you can correct them and then repeat walking around it. And you repeat walking, circles around it and stuff, and you'll okay. Yeah. I can be I can see this energy and be around it and not have to return it. It's like teaching the kids would normally, essentially. Okay? So if like dogs behind fences, I don't know if I ever told you guys about that. It's the same thing as about to be another reactive dog, but that's it's a controlled context, just to be mindful of the owner and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really just being a step ahead, knowing the correct reactions, so that we ideally don't even see the reactivity in the first place. Okay? Questions so far?
No.
Let me go ahead and have you move with them again. Any way you like. Good job. And relax. Go ahead and I'm going to have you hug in the middle and try to stay back and forth like this.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna be harassing you with pain here. All right. Then I'm relaxed. There you go. Yeah, no, it's everybody does it. I see it all the time. Like that. Good. Yep. Back Bailey. Rupert. Right. Back forward. Yep. Movement. Very good. Good. Slow stop. Yep, there you go. Good. And here, because we have the space and the time to do so, is don't worry about pulling up on that leash. Use your remote. Yeah. Use the remote until she does it. The more you use the remote, I look at it as an opportunity. Okay. Now, if she looks completely confused and is jumping around like this, that tells me she's completely caught off guard. Then you add an as you're remoting the leash pressure to guide her through that panic. That's what happens. Okay. If you see confusion or panic, I'll try to work the dog through it. Otherwise, if it looks like they're not going to get it, I keep tapping still at wherever I'm at, and then pull out for the sitting position to guide them. Okay. You want them ideally to think through the panic or the confusion, because that's what proves your obedience more in terms of in case there's an emergency. But also, like Rupert's going like, oh crap, man, there is no like, tap Rupert. There you go. And then tap again. There you go, like that. Right? Now relax. Now, did you see what your instinct was? Cool, right? But you caught yourself, right? You caught yourself and you gave a secondary tap, and what do? You sat back up. Yeah, right? So, it's super common. Everybody does it. We're so used to physical control, right? It's about mental control. The only tool that allows us to do this, in my opinion, is the remote tool, right? I won't call it that. So here, the more you use it, the better they are. Okay, people tend to only use this in the extreme. Oh, now they're pulling. Oh, now they're being reactive, right? Oh, now they're growling. And I go, no, like, if you do it that way, it'll be a forever problem. Okay, but if I do it the preventative way, which is the remoting for little things like this, he's like, crap, I can't even get away with like trying to lay down and like Bailey's paws. Yeah, like it's like, okay. So then he doesn't go to the next degree because you're constantly keeping him in check. Okay, you know, I've been referring to this now as a cop on a collar because people change their behavior when they're around authority, right? It's the same thing for the dogs. Obviously, if this wasn't present, they wouldn't be as well behaved. And it's nothing about the training or any of the work that you've done or my level of skill as a trainer. It's because we're opportunistic. Humans, if they can get away with stuff, like speeding is the most common. I ask everybody, and like I'm actually gonna make a video on it because like 95 to 98% of people don't go the speed limit. Yeah. Okay, and there's a very few that go, yeah, I go the speed limit, right? But they go, but I see everybody else not going the speed limit, right? Yeah. So the percentage of those that are compliant to that degree is much smaller, right? Same thing for dogs. I do get the occasional dog that it's like a little bit of remote, like a 180, and they're like, yeah, they're super obedient even without the collar. I'm like, but that's like a dog a year, and like a couple years after they've trained, you know, that they're like, yeah, we realize that we don't really need the collar anymore. I don't promote it because I'm like, I think you should always have it in case of an emergency, but some people just decide to do it on their own. And I go, all right. Questions? What's up?
It's good. I'm happy. I'm excited.
That they're back or that
Yeah.
they didn't walk two dogs?
Oh, they're bad.
Yeah, you missed them?
I did. I probably caused a lot of that, so. But I told you I was going to get better, I'm going to do better. I'm going to
Yeah, what I would recommend, like, is there anything in particular that you struggle with?
They just, like, so there's times where it's probably, like, I watched, I think it was a chunk, like, watched a bunch of season 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time where it's like, one of
Canine Perspective.
these dogs, like, they go to the dog park, the dog always, like, sit next to her, like, right by her.
Yep.
Like, you don't want that, like,
Yep.
that's the dog trying to protect you. Rupert does that all the time.
Right.
Like, if I go in the backyard and, like, he'll go poop and pee, and then he'll come back and sit right behind me.
Yeah.
And, like, my problem is, like, I'll give him love, like,
Yeah, you're reinforcing
love
that,
you,
sure.
so that stuff I just have to like stop, like reinforce it and sitting next to me or like.
Correct. Like here it'd be a different thing because it's an obedience mode.
Yeah.
Right? You've taught that skill set, but that's obviously a very, how do you say, obvious because you're like, he pees and poops in the yard and then he's right next to me. Whereas every other dog would be running in the yard.
Running around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we've done here, what we did here, we stress a lot. Like you saw Bane was on the placemat. We had Pepper on the placemat. Like they do 2 to 3 hours of stuff in between things. Okay. Being stationary for a long period of time is difficult for a dog. It's like a toddler.
Yeah.
It's like for a kid. It's difficult to make them sit still for a long period of time. But it's a great mental workout. Is you could use that in the yard to force them to disconnect. Okay.
So like putting him somewhere to sit and stay. I like want.
Yeah, like I think we do it over the place now with bed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So take a bed or something, a little mat, a rug for outdoor rug. And then what we do here is these guys are, I don't know if you see Pepper here, she's got a blue leash on her. That's a tether. Okay, so if she tries to move, she's not gonna get anywhere. Like she can get off of the placemat, but then we can correct her from across the room and she goes back on it, and then we continue doing what we're doing. You know, so like these guys would be out and they're switching, I'm saying training, like roles and stuff like that. So they'll be doing duration work, and then sometimes they train dogs in the middle there, and they bring them down here to do recall, and there's a dog over here. So like there's a bunch of stuff going on, and they could try to move, but if they did, somebody's around that can correct them to get them to go back on the position. So like let's say over by your place, if there's like a post, if there's a fence or something, just put the bed or the mat or whatever you're gonna use by that, have a leash tether, clip them, walk away, and then you're gonna see them like wanna go to you. And you correct them with the remote and make them go back. Now he has to sit there and be stationary because the brain is going, I want to be next to mom. And you're saying, I'm not going to let you, right? Now we're doing a preventative approach by using the place command, okay? If we were to do it like the Cesar Millan-esque type approach, I would correct the dog until they leave my space, okay? Which is harder, okay? Because remote means to move to you. Did we ever do the backing away exercise where you flush into them and then they move away?
No.
No. So I do this when like, the moving into the house, the coming into the house exercise. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That exercise.
Yeah.
So like, let's say Rupert goes to follow you in the yard, you turn around, you start removing, and you move into him to push him away, right? And in the beginning, you're probably going to get this because he's never had it in that setting. But you can do that as well, and that's the different type of disengagement because that's the, hey, I'm going to be over here in the yard, but you need to be over there. I don't care what you do, but you have to be over there, right? And then you have to have your visual of what your boundary or your threshold is. So if it's like brick onto grass, then I flush him back until he goes onto the brick area. And now my threshold is the grass line. So I'm telling him, look, I'm going to be over here doing stuff. I don't need to do my business. You know, maybe needy and want to be over here, but I don't want you over here, right? That's more mental game than the place command would be, but you technically have two approaches, okay? But I would suggest that, you know, if you're seeing a lot of that neediness stuff, it's easy, you know, it's just a matter of getting the setup done, and every time you're outside, making it happen. I'm not opposed to dogs being next to us, but I'm opposed to it in an unhealthy fashion, okay? You can always call him to you and give him love and stuff, but that's because it's on your terms, not because he just feels like he has to have it, okay? Other questions?
I think it's more of how this will help her continue to help anxiety.
Yeah.
I feel like she wants this.
Well, they've never been out of their home before, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
This is the first time they've ever been.
Yeah, so that's a big factor.
Okay.
We had a dog here, they did a 4-week boarding train with us. I trained the daughter's 2 dogs and the dad's 1 dog, so we had 3 for 4 weeks here. And her 1 dog was like Bailey, super anxious. And I remember the first weeks, it was a lot of salivating. And then he started to dial down. You know, he was still like panting and stuff, but it wasn't as much saliva by the end of the 4-week program and stuff. But that was just naturally him. Like the one that keeps running over there, his name's Rizzo. Same thing with him. He's a very anxious dog. So like the owner's gonna be, the teacher does daycare with us, but she's wanting to address that because she can see how it's developing.
Yeah.
So this for here, like, don't blame yourself. Okay, a lot of this can be genetic, and reinforcing the wrong things didn't help, but that's what I'm here for. Okay.
So then if she was to come, so say like I was able to do like a daycare with her. I live 45 minutes south, so not all the time. But would it help at all to like bring her here?
It bring her
here just to separate her from the house as much, or does it really not like?
It does. Well, it does because we're structured.
Yeah.
But if it's just take her somewhere and just run around willy-nilly, that's different. It would also help her get used to not always being in the environment at home, right? It's super common. That's why we tell people, you know, like I already trained with you, that's no problem, but like for those that haven't, we'll tell them we want to do a 3-day evaluation to get your dog used to our space, because if you just drop them off, they're going to be freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we do that to warm them up. So they come here in the morning, they leave in the evening, do that for a couple of days, and we go, now your dog's acclimated. Still not the best, but at least they're much more familiar.
Yeah.
And then over the course of time, they relax more. Okay, so for the first visit, definitely not anything out the ordinary here. Okay, that's why I would anticipate it, even from the stuff that I remembered of you guys. Getting her to separate, I would be. And how long are you away? An hour 45? What would you take
From here?
Yeah.
Oh, no, 45 minutes away.
45 minutes away?
I would end up driving, I honestly don't trust anyone else.
Uh-huh.
To be honest. Like I would drive here.
Right.
Like either when I got off work, I could come drop her off, take a nap and pick her up before the night.
Okay.
Because like my sister lives out here, so I come up here and visit her.
Oh, I
It's
see,
just, like,
yeah.
I feel better taking her here than anything. Like there's a daycare down the street from my house, but they just let the dogs, like they let them run around. You hear them constantly yelling at them, like just screaming at the dogs. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, if you're gonna come up here to see your sister and something? or
So it would be, yeah.
Yeah,
it would
that's
just be
for
like
sure, you can do that.
time.
Yeah. I was just thinking like, man, coming up here just to get used to the space, like that's so far. But yeah, if you're gonna be in
Like,
the
my sister
area,
lives out here, so like anytime I'm up here or something.
yeah, because we have a client that actually lives in Highland Park,
Okay.
and she comes every now and then to go see her friend. So she'll drop her dog off here while she spends the day with her friend, and then
Yeah.
come up in the day. So she's getting them ready for like boarding and stuff whenever she travels. But because she asked me the same, she's like, do I have to go down there like regularly? I'm like, no. I was like, because we're structured, it gives us some gray area. Where there was a dog that we hadn't seen him in 2 months, and he came back and it was no problem because we're structured and everybody's trained to use these tools.
Yeah.
So no big deal. And I told her, I was like, yeah, whenever you want, just bring them on by. Day here and there, you'll get used to it. So, okay, awesome. Anything else? Good. And then I'll look in because since you did 2 boarding trains, you get more follow-up as well. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember if it was a class per week.